invocation?
Wait, Raj, may I do?
Please.
Shall I start?
Ji.
Yeah. सदाशिव समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरु परम्पराम् श्रुति स्मृति पुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शंकरं लोकशंकरं शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
So, with the Anugraha, we have completed the first chapter. The main point that we have extrapolated out of it, the main point that has been addressed here is that human life, specifically here, has in it a sense of want, which is always manifested. We can hide it, we can cover it, we can project something else contrary to it, we can pretend, we can camouflage. But the nudge inside of a sense of want, of a sense of kuch or there should be something more, there should be something else. We don't ask for heavens, but that nudge, a little more, that little extra should be there. And that's a universal feeling for everyone. That feeling is the root expression of samsara. There will be variations in gradations, the intensity of it felt. In each life also it will vary, sometimes more, sometimes less. When we are good at, or when we are involved with something which is to our favor, we may even forget about it for some time. But the fact will remain that there is a sense of incomplete feeling which lurks at the background of everyone. Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana and Arjuna were our three main people in first chapter, and through all three of them we saw different ways in which the disturbance, that incompleteness, expressed itself. All of them had Krishna in front of them. And through their life, it wasn't suddenly that he has arrived at the war. Through their life, they had the exposure to Krishna, the wisdom that he held. But the only person who could extract that, who could benefit from that presence around him, who could tap into the wisdom of what Krishna was representing, was Krishna holding, was only Arjuna. Or this itself is a very big learning to anyone who wishes welfare for their own self, self-correction. Not all of us are privileged to have people around us who are interested in our welfare. That's why are parents so valued in our life? Because what parents can think about you and your welfare at the expense of their welfare, nobody can. Other than that, you can have friends who have teachers. It is not very common to find people who are going to be centered, their interest will be centered on you. What Arjuna did was, he was able to relate to Krishna in such a way that he managed to derive the best from Krishna. That means, if you really see the three disturbances, Arjuna was the most disturbed amongst the three. His disturbance was very deep, very unsettling. And yet, he manages to get himself on track to what is his welfare. At the end of the Gita, we will see that. The point is, what are those characteristics that Arjuna represented, which brought him this immediate sannidhi? We'll call it sannidhi. Sannidhi means association. Immediate association with a wise person, and wise here in this context is Bhagwan himself. That is not so common. It's rare. So, first step for any seeker, all of us being jivas, first step is to see how close to Arjuna's character itself we can be. That itself will earn the anugraha. ऐसा क्या खास था उसके अंदर? ऐसी क्या खासियत थी? ऐसा क्या अभिव्यक्ति थी? What was this person that he managed to, with such deep-seated disturbance, managed to get wisdom literally at his call in the most difficult situation that he was facing? So first chapter, we see this samsara lakshana. It starts from just simple expression of emotion. Looks to be a kind emotion, nice emotion, positive emotion, generous emotion, a compassionate emotion. As Sanjaya puts it, kripaya avishtaha. He sees in Arjuna the eruption of a noble thought. First step. As that eruption of the thought emerged, that nobility was expressing itself, emerging in his mind overpowered and now started fearing the loss of the people whom he was very deeply related to. He had a identity around them. That's important sentence. Arjuna's identity was not around his own मैं Arjun हूँ. As I said in a class before, he always addressed himself as Drona Shishya. His identity was, he knew what he was not because of his own Purusharth alone. He had received a lot of sneh, a lot of affection, a lot of closeness with people around, elders around him. As that karuna, that compassion, as Sanjaya puts it, the nobility that he sees in his own self, kind emotion. Nobody can say that this emotion was wrong. He feels this is a right, justified emotion. That overpowers, and when he starts feeling the sense of loss, he's able to project where this war is going to go ahead in future, the result of it, whatever it be, what will it bring? And he only sees loss everywhere. So from a sense of raga, raga means sneh, means emotion, affection, positive emotion, comes a stage of bhaya, fear. Fear brings about grief suddenly. There is this incomprehensibility of facing his own life at the loss of his dear ones. That incomprehensibility of facing his life was overwhelming his mind. इनके जाने के बाद, suddenly he realized, even if they win the war, it is going to be of no use at all. He feels winning the war would mean getting a kingdom and pleasures. So now his mind starts to justify. I don't want all this. This war is not worth it. And the third or the fourth stage, you can call it, if you take fear in between, then the fourth stage is he's got deluded. Buddhi uski confuse ho gayi. There is confusion. He doesn't understand what is right and wrong. उसे क्या करना है, क्या नहीं करना. And at this point, the confusion, emotions, various emotions, he projected the reasoning as far as saying that even the Pitras are going to get adhogati. There is no good coming out of this war. He justifies it at the end of the first chapter. किसी का भला नहीं है इसमें. O Krishna, we should withdraw. Let us be at least the wise ones who can see the consequences of these actions. Let us at least withdraw from the war. And here ends the first chapter. Now starts the second chapter, and second chapter is addressed as Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya here word does not mean the school Sankhya, the Shat Darshanas. It doesn't mean the Shat Darshanas, one of the schools of Indian philosophy. Sankhya here means Gyan. So if you take it in a normal sense, it is Jnana Yoga. First chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. His grief became the instrument for his seeking, his welfare, what is right. The second chapter is now giving knowledge. Jnana Yoga. Second chapter is said to be like a upasamhar. Upasamhar means summary. It's a summary of all the chapters to follow. Upakrama. Upakrama is the summary. 18th chapter is also a summary. Gita has 18 chapters. 18th chapter is also a summary. Upasamhar. Both the chapters are going to give in a nutshell what is going to be the coming chapters in details. Little more details about the various topics that are going to be in second chapter. Second chapter is the second longest chapter. The longest is 18, 78 verses. Second is 72 verses, I think. 72 verses of the second chapter are going to be the summary. What is the premise here? The premise that we are going to derive benefit from is human being, when he comes to the point of confusion, बुद्धि जब उसकी confuse हो जाती है, that confusion is not advisable, is to be prevented. You have to deal life and situations led by your buddhi. The life has to be navigated, is to be navigated. No human being is allowed, I would say, to sit doing nothing. Idleness is not a Vedic value. Idleness is not auspicious. It will not take you to your welfare. Every human being has to navigate their life because they have the faculty of Purusharth, will, and the capacity to choose. Two things that make it very, very unique. Your buddhi can show you various options, choices, as they surface in life. Situations bring about what you should choose, what should you do, can be thought over, and a choice needs to be made when it needs to be made. You can procrastinate to a point important decisions, but you cannot sit on things that need to be decided and postpone those decisions, letting them just take their own course. Sometimes, yes, but in important situations, the choice has to be made. Choice for a human being means he must know what is good and what is not good, what is right and what is not right, etc. उसी के हिसाब से तो he will say ये करूं कि नहीं करूं, should I do this or should I not do this, should I avoid this or should I not avoid this, etc, etc. That means a lot of each individual's life gati. Gati means the path in which our life moves, the road in which our life travels. The experiences that we encounter, we face, are most of them are dependent on the wisdom we hold. What is the inner wisdom that each one holds? Those wisdom is what is going to direct this vehicle of human life. This being so, when the buddhi gets confused of what it should do, it sometimes comes in a point where, like Arjuna, you can say it's blankness, starts with, sometimes you just numbness. There is an intellectual numbness. There is an intellectual paralysis. There's a overwhelm and you're not sure. Forget sure. There is this incapacitation of the buddhi, and therefore the individual kind of collapses, like Arjuna collapsed. Sanjaya is starting the second chapter. Arjuna's sthiti, when he sat on the last seat, on the seat of the chariot, Gandiva had slipped from his hand, and he was, I do not know what is to be done. And I think he said, concluded, this war is only going to bring us papam. Such a person whose action has got inhibited. When the mind is, yeah, नंदिशी जी आपका माइक ऑन है. When the buddhi gets paralyzed, overwhelmed by emotion, uncertain what it should do, it kind of stalls. It stalls as in रोक देता है, obstacle बन जाता है. For further feelings, especially positive feelings, good feelings that are more healthy for a human being, paralyzes, of course, the thinking, and therefore paralyzes the action, capacity to act. And as I just said, a human being is not going to be given a choice not to act. In the third chapter, a lot of details are going to come on it. Because the embodied being finds himself with the capacity to act, to choose, has the will, and therefore must be able to gear his life, steer his life. And to steer his life must know on what road to steer. किस रास्ते ले जानी है जिंदगी मुझको. And that is what is, you call it purpose, you call it motivation, you call it something that inspires you, but it is something that is projected in front as a higher thing or lower, whatever, to each one. Something that you generate your actions towards. So some people say money is everything in life. So what will you act for? Money. Some people will say pleasures is the end of life. What will you act for? Pleasure. What will you maneuver your life for? I always find this very beautiful for my personal reflection. Every time there is a little haziness, I see a, पुराने ज़माने में that slate and black, what was that called? Slate and chalk piece we used to have at home to practice, and then we used to rub it and then practice and rub it. A blank slate. I visualize a blank slate. What does a blank slate hold? You can say a blank paper. Do anything. It's okay. A blank canvas. What does a blank slate hold? What does it have? Blank. What is its capacity? It may be this small. What is the capacity of that slate?
It allows us to draw, write, whatever we want.
So
It's unlimited.
Endless.
unlimited. It will be unlimited. Even within that frame, it has a capacity, potential to write anything. It has a capacity that anything can be manifested on it. क्या manifest होगा? If yours and my life, we are blank slate started with, what have we written in our life? Who is going to be? Is the slate writing on its own? Who's deciding what I write on this slate? क्या लिखना है मुझे इस पे? क्या लिखने के लिए you will need wisdom or whatever you know, knowledge. Even in the form of ignorance, if you think money is everything, that's your knowledge. You will write according to that. This capacity to act is so unique, so beautiful. It's a Shakti. Karam is a Shakti. It's a great potential. It's actually it's a expression of the Mahashakti. In the sense, it's a poetic way of saying it. It's got infinite potential in it. Karam, capacity to act for a human being alone in the entire creation. And this is how Shastra says it. It's not what I'm saying. In the entire creation of all living creatures, Karam ki Shakti is so powerful, is so unique only to human being. And call it irony, call it game plan, Ishvara's game plan, who knows. Whatever be it, it is only the human being who also gets most confused of what is to be done with his life or her life. इस जीवन में most people do not hold a purpose. They have no goal. In fact, there's no prayojan to life. ज़रूरत क्या है? It's fantastic the way we come. We are born through accident. We live for some time. We will die one day. In between, live, eat, be merry. There's a particular school called the Charvaka school of thought. That thinking will make me write on my slate according to that. So to Arjuna, who was a noble person by now, has lived through the sense of right all his life. He has mastered his impulses. He's overcome them. He's become, in English if you say, he's become, Sanskritam is the right word, but in English you say he's become sophisticated in that sense. He's not showing impulsive vulgarity. He's a fine gentleman. Such a person who was clear in his life, his action dropped. That Shakti with which you steer your life, because life is a flow of experience, whether you harness them, you guide them, you manifest them, life will continue. As long as there's life, you are experiencer of those experiences. For Arjuna and for us human beings, the capacity to act must be directed. It has to be constantly kept directed. If it is not kept directed, the first victim of one's own self is that the mind becomes absolutely in the hands of the immediate pleasures and gratifications. अर्जुन का जो हाल हुआ है, उस डिग्री में, according to that expression comes where सब ठीक है, चलता है, मजे हैं, करो तो करो, नहीं करो, you know what I mean, all averagely you understood. Anybody needs explanation on that? I think we understand that whatever if your capacity to act is not kept directed, the mind by itself is आराम से बैठेगा. It won't have that unless until the buddhi is bringing the mind to a particular objective, purpose, motivation, inspiration. Any word. Arjun came prepared in the war with a motivation, inspiration, purpose. There was very powerful motivation behind. There was a very strong purpose behind. There was a very powerful force behind his plan of action. क्या लिखने वाला था वो अपने स्लेट पे? It was already planned for many years. It was discerned. Because of this sudden moh, his action paralyzed. He doesn't know what to do. That losing one's way can be for a short period of time, can be for a length of time, and it can be for many years also. It could be one occasion, it can be one experience, it can be one sentence, and a person can slip into Vishad. That your highest inspiration, you may lose motivation after that. Suddenly you don't find a reason to act. Suddenly you don't find a reason to continue a relation. Suddenly you don't find a reason to be in a job, to be in family, suddenly you lose it. As if it has gone for good. And that moment, that desire to drop it, नहीं करने का मन करता हो. Because you have lost the connection with the purpose for which you were generating that action. Am I making this clear to everyone? Yes? Okay. Everyone? Yeah. That sudden dropping of the purpose is what is not, can't call it just beneficial. It's harmful for a human being. Forget not beneficial. It's detrimental to your gati. It is detrimental to the life experiences that it is going to generate. Such state of mind is detrimental for a human being. Is what the Shastra is. The entire Vedic view is this. And Gita is a highlight of this. In different Shastras, you have different highlights. In Gita, the very first chapter and the starting point of this second chapter is showing that purpose, if it is for some reason, gets deflated, and that reason will be your emotion. It can be your lack of discerned thinking before. It can be your own value structure. It was Arjuna's value structure that messed him up, let me say, temporarily. That confused him. This paralysis of action because you lose inspiration. And it's a very, very, I don't know how many of you are going to relate to this closely. In everyone's life, your spiritual growth and your higher purusharth for your higher you, your development. This paralysis that Arjuna represents will come at the point of your spiritual growth existing. ये जो confusion अर्जुन को हुआ है, it is marking his spiritual development. He has to cross this, overcome it, for his growth to happen. And all of us will experience that if we are seeking the higher, if we are seeking Artha and Kama, it will come in that direction. Shastra doesn't address that. Shastra is addressing when there is a desire for growth, inner development. That growth, at the point at which you are now, you've come with in this life, and you aspire a better you, it will be exactly that will trigger the instability in that sense in you. That you will, kabhi wo vishad and its gradations will arise, and you will find yourself in a similar language that Arjuna says, what is the use of all this? Why am I doing it? And that, the Gita says, through Arjuna to all of us, is the point at which you should be avoiding. Logically speaking, the student of Gita need not go through this if you are absorbing the knowledge. It's like taking a vaccine. You can prevent it. So if you're going to prevent this moh-grast manaha, that prevention can work if you have this principle that Krishna is very soon going to unfold. But before he unfolds, he is going to go all out and condemn Arjuna in such a manner that it seems he has disturbed Arjuna even further. No, you expect, किसी से आप एडवाइस लेने जा रहे हैं या कोई गुरु है, कोई, you expect your parent, your elder, आप उनको अपनी व्यथा बता रहे हैं, आप उनको अपना दुख सुना रहे हैं, आप उनको confusion बता रहे हैं, आप conflict, आप ये, so you expect the other person is going to be calm and quiet and peaceful and nice and nice, they'll give you all nice good talk and pacify you and glorify you and sympathize with you, and you expect a God to be like that. At least God would be understanding me, no? भगवान तो समझेगा, सब कुछ जानता है वो तो भगवान तो kind है,
empathetic, Deepti ji.
Empathetic. He will be empathetic with me, or whoever you've gone to thinking, you expect that to happen. This is our Shastra, and if the day you see the glory of this, you can only keep praying, hey Bhagwan, thank God this is Sanatan Dharma, because this will not get disappeared, but I may lose my way from it. Hey Bhagwan, let me never lose my way from this knowledge ever, because you begin to see a God here is going to shake Arjuna up. Instead of being empathetic with him, it's literally like slapping him further, shaking him up so hard. By such piercing words he's going to use. His first words from where Gita starts, Bhagwan is going to use such piercing words that हिला हुआ इंसान literally गड्ढे में घुसेगा. I don't want to see myself. If this is what the person you hold so high, if this is their opinion of me, I don't know where to go. I'd rather, go hide myself somewhere, etc., etc. That is going to be second and third verse of the second chapter. And then again, Krishna, whatever he used, would have shaken up Arjuna normally. Anyone. But Arjuna's grief has got so deep-seated already that his strong words, though they have disturbed him, they have not cleared his thinking of what he should do. And he almost suspects that Krishna hasn't understood him. And ye bahut hota hai. When you're talking to someone, taking help, and then they are trying to give you the answer, and you keep saying, नहीं नहीं आप समझे नहीं मेरी बात को समझे नहीं. You'll go on repeating, नहीं नहीं आप नहीं समझे. अरे वो इंसान समझ के आपको हो सकता है कुछ कह रहा है, but to your mind it will be, नहीं नहीं आप समझे नहीं, because you want the answer. What answer do you want?
To your liking.
To your liking. What you want to hear. So unless until that person is going to give you the answer what you want to hear, till then you will continue saying, Nini, you have not understood, I mean this, but I was meaning this, but you'll go on and on and on. And therefore, fourth verse onwards, for a few verses, Arjuna repeats himself. And then this is where Krishna understands, probably knows very well that अब ये थोड़ा वक्त लगेगा बुद्धि क्लियर होने में, थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा. That's how the 17 chapters will continue. But here we will start with the first verse. And now, yes, I'm going to keep chanting going a little bit along with the verses. We will cover up later the first part. वैसे भी Gita will start with Bhagwan Uvacha. So the first chapter also will cover up, but somehow we'll integrate somewhere. But let's start the second chapter. Who wants to follow with me? Last time I think Aditi wanted to do and we had stopped there. You want to do? Want to? Okay. So, द्वितीयोऽध्यायः.
द्वितीयोऽध्यायः.
When we are chanting, the we are not chanting. द्वितीयोऽध्यायः.
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 The we are not chanting when we are chanting. It's not adhyayah in chanting. When you break it up, it is dvitiya, dvitiyaha, adhyayah. But in chanting, we are doing it with the sandhi, so that that S mark is the avagraha. So you said dvitiyodhyayah.
द्वितीयोऽध्यायः.
अथ सांख्ययोगः.
अथ सांख्ययोगः.
Sanjaya uvacha.
सञ्जय उवाच.
तथा कृपयाविष्टम्.
तं तथया कृपयाविष्टम्.
तथा कृपयाविष्टम्.
तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम्.
अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम्. अश्रुपूर्णा.
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 कुलेक्षणम्.
कुलेक्षणम्.
विषीदन्तमिदम्.
विषीदन्तमिदम्.
वाक्यम्.
वाक्यम्.
उवाच मधुसूदनः.
उवाच मधुसूदन.
उवाच मधुसूदनः.
उवाच मधुसूदन.
संजय उवाच.
सञ्जय उवाच.
तथा कृपयाविष्टम्.
तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम्.
अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम्.
अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम्.
विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम्
विषिदन्तमिदं वाक्यम्
उवाच मधुसूदनः.
उवाच मधुसूदन.
So, for those of you who are following the rules, tam optionally followed by anuswara followed by ta should become anyone?
Tan.
Tan.
Correct. So it's optionally, but we are trying to take the option just because it's easy to chant also and because it's one step closer to Sanskrit. So tan tatha, and here which of these had the Mahaprana? Anyone?
Dha Madhusudan,
Madhusudan, dha and
Tatha,
tatha. So the Mahapran, you will have a little extra expulsion. So see, if you keep your hand there, tatha and tatha. Tan tatha kripaya vishtam. Correct. Ashrupurna kulekshanam. Very good, Rajni. Tha also. Vishidantamidam vakyam. Uvacha madhusudanaha. Try, Aditi. No? Okay. You want to follow?
Yes.
Sanjaya uvacha
Sanjaya uvacha
tantatha kripaya vishtam
tantata kripaya vishtam
ashrupurna kulekshanam
ashrupurnakulekshanam
vishidantamidam vakyam
vishitantamidam vakyam
uvacha madhusudanaha.
uvacha madhusudana.
So, this anuswar can also be optionally va, but we are sticking it to ma. So now, thank you, Aditi. We'll come back for the next verse. I think we'll do that one day at a time. As many verses I do, maybe one person. So Aditi, next verse also. That way, I think it will be easier to streamline. So now the second chapter is started, and Sanjaya is narrating to Dhritarashtra. And what is the narration? He says, Tam tatha. Tam tatha kripaya avishtam. Ashru purna akula ikshanam. I'll repeat the words. Tam tatha kripaya avishtam. Ashrupurna akula ikshanam. Vishidantam idam vakyam. Uvacha madhusudanaha. So, tam idam vakyam uvacha. Tam referring to Arjuna. Idam vakyam, this sentence, vakya, uvacha said. Who said? Madhusudanaha. Madhusudanaha, slayer of the demon Madhu, Krishna. To him, to Arjuna, Krishna said this. What is Arjuna's description? Tam. Kripaya avishtam. The one who was overpowered by Kripa. According to Sanjay, Kripa was a positive emotion that Arjuna was experiencing. And this is important to note in the next verse. So here, Sanjaya is narrating Arjuna's emotion to Dhritarashtra as Kripa. Kripa means compassion, nice, good. That's what he sees it. Avishta. His mind is completely disturbed now. Akula. Ashrupurna. His eyes have become filled with Ikshanam, eyes. Ashru, tears. His mind is so akula, vyakula. He's become sad, depressed. He's become so low that his eyes have filled with tears. Vishidantam. And he's continuing to be in Vishad. He's slipping into Vishad. He's completely into that state where his eyes are filled with tears. So if you see the continuity of the previous words, when Arjuna said, my Gandiva has slipped and I don't think I am going to fight. Visritya sasharam chapam chokam samvigna manasaha. What did he say? Yadi mam prati karam ashastram shastrapanayah dhritarashtra rane hanyuhu tanme kshemataram bhavet. For me it will be better that they kill me and I will not oppose it. And by now, he's sitting on the chariot. His eyes are filled with tears. When do our eyes fill with tears? So we just remember. Hanji?
You're sad. Upset.
Yeah. So you remember, tears, you cannot act tears, no? So easily, unless and of course, I don't know what actors do. But you have to bring up to your, it's not easy to just bring tears. His eyes were filled with tears. And to him, in grief, yes, to him, to such an Arjuna, Madhusudanaha, Madhusudana, Krishna, Sanjaya is calling him as the one who was a slayer of demon. He spoke these words to such an Arjuna. And I'm sure it's not what I'm saying. The acharyas in between would say that Dhritarashtra even here must have probably got a little sparkle in his eyes. Oh, if his halat is this, maybe Krishna will tell him. So he must have come to the edge of his seat like that. That maybe Krishna will tell him, okay, it's okay, because he's already said, Arjuna has said, I'm not going to fight. It's better that they kill me. Dhritarashtra has heard this. So what is the hope in Dhritarashtra? That maybe Krishna will sanction. And what does Krishna say? This verse, there are some verses in Gita that I will say, maybe if you want to memorize, you can memorize. This second verse is a very famous verse, and for those who want to, can memorize the verse. Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Kutastvakashmalamidam
Kutasvakashmalamidam
Kutastvakashmalamidam
Kutasvakashmalamidam
Vishame samupasthitam
Vishame sumamas
samupasthitam
sumamastitam
samupasthitam samupasthitam
samupastitam
samupasthitam
samupastitam
anaryajustam
anaryajustam
asvargyam
asvargyam
akirtikaram
akirtikaram
Arjuna
Arjuna
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
श्रीभगवानुवाच
कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदम्
कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं
विषमे समुपस्थितम्
विषमे उपस्थितम्
अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम्
अनार्यजुष्टमस्
अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन
अकीर्तिकमर्जुन
अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम्
अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्गयम्
स्वर्ग्यम्
स्वर्ग्यम्
अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम्
अनार्यजुष्टम् अस्वर्गयम्
अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन
अकीर्तिकरम् अर्जुन
श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदम् विषमे समुपस्थितम्
श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं विश्वे समुपस्थितम्
अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन
अनार्यजुष्टं स्वर्गयम् अकीर्तिकरम् अर्जुन
Very good, good, good. So, which are the Mahapranas? Priyanka?
There's the tha again, samupasthitam. I think that's it.
Bhagavan. Three?
Oh, in Bhagavad. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So you have Bha and Tha Mahapran. Rest, because we are breaking after Vishi Kashamalamidam. Therefore, the Anuswara is sounded full. Okay? Fine? Yeah. So, Shri Bhagwan Uvacha. Shri Bhagwan now said. What did he say to Arjuna? Kuttastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam anarya justam asvargyam akirtikaram. O Arjuna. What is the spirit of this? The spirit is, O Arjuna, ये क्या हाल तुमने अपना बना के रखा है? This does not behold any graceful, what is that? Any respectable, honorable person. ये क्या हाल तुमने अपना ऐसा बना के रखा है that neither is it showing you as an honorable person, nor is it coming to what all honor, what all kirti you have gained. You are not in any way showing those characteristics for which you have come to be known. This is generalizing the statement. Now, one at a time. Kuttaha tva. How come? Kuttaha. How come? Kaise? Tva. Tumhara. Quote unquote hal. How come your kashmalam? Malam, dirt. Kashmalam. How come your mind has got this kashmal, dirt, as if? Means it's gone into despair, dejection. How are you feeling so dejected? Why is there so much mala, kashmala. Idam, this kind of a kashmala, this kind of a dejection you have fallen into, this kind of a despair you are showing. How come, Arjun, you are showing this despair? Vishame sam upasthitam. When are you sure? Why is it a mala? One of the reasons it's a mala, it's considered that this despair, it's not that generalized despair is wrong. Your thinking, Krishna is calling it as a dosha here, has gone wrong. You're wrong here, Arjuna, if you're going to fall into despair now. Why? Because Vishame, this situation is so already a difficult situation. In such a situation, samupasthitam, what is available in this situation does not tally with your state of mind. What situation requires from you, Vishame, this is a Visham sthiti hai. It's a difficult situation. In this Visham sthiti, what is required of you to act? Where has this weakness? When we did Kripaya in the first chapter, remember I said it is actually meaning weakness of the mind. How has this weakness of your mind erupted at this time? What is he qualifying it further? He gives them 3 words. What are they? Anaryam. It is not befitting an Arya. Arya is not the race that it is talking about. Arya is the one who is looked up, steadfast in what they should be doing. The one who is consistently being steadfast in what they do, and because of which they are examples for others to follow. If you are inspired by someone and when you get confused, one of the things that becomes a praman for your buddhi is, वो अगर होते तो वो क्या करते? वो अगर होते तो वो शायद ये कहते. वो अगर होते तो वो ऐसा करते. So someone when you look up to, who has lived up to that nobility of character by persistently, consistently doing what ought to have been done, have set an example for others, they are called Arya. In Yoga Vashisht, there are 2 verses which are defining Arya. One verse is more directly related. It Kartavyam Acharan. Kartavyam Acharan, who has an achar, means conduct. In Kartavyata, कर्तव्य क्या है मेरा, उनका आचरण उसमें रहता है. They conduct themselves based on what their duties are. कर्तव्य उनके. They conduct themselves on their कर्तव्य. कामम अकर्तव्यम अनाचरण. जो मन में इच्छाएं आती हैं, if it is अकर्तव्य, they do not do that. They anacharan. They never do what is not to be done. जो कर्तव्य में नहीं है, they will not. They will refrain from it. तिष्ठति प्रकृताचारे सतु आर्य इति स्मृतः. तिष्ठति प्रकृत आचारे. They abide always. तिष्ठति, रहते हैं. Internal स्थिति मन की, they stay in that. आचरण, प्रकृत आचरण. In this manner, when they conduct themselves, Tatu Arya iti smritaha. It is in Smritis said as, such are the people who are called Arya. So do you get the spirit of the verse? Who is an Arya? Who has lived, who lives, follows. In their life, their conduct is based on their duties. And they live on that.
Gita ji,
And what is not their duty, they don't do that. Anji?
can you repeat the line again? Tishtati prakrit achare.
Prakritachare satu arya iti smritaha. I'll repeat the verse again. Kartavyam acharan. Kamam akartavyam anacharan. Tishtati prakritachare satu arya iti smritaha.
Got it. Thank you.
So who is the one who is an Aryan? Not the Aryan Dravidian division. According to the Shastras, Smritis, here Smritaha can also mean he is remembered as an Aryan. But according to Smriti, Arya is one who is actually always upright. His conduct has been consistently exemplifying what is to be done. And it's not an easy thing because a lot of us don't discern what is to be done. So a person who has discerned what is to be done and is doing it continuously, consistently, such a one is an Aryan. The next verse in Yoga Vishishta, because this is Yoga Vishishta, this is more from the standpoint of practices, yoga also, and otherwise, in general, those who are established as an Aryan, what is their effect on society? The next verse says, Udeti Yoga Yuktanam Atra Kevalam Aryata. Udeti Yoga Yuktanam. Someone who is following what is to be done or is in practices of self-development like yoga or sadhanas, any of them, Karam Yoga, Gyan Yoga, whatever, one who is Yoga Yuktanam, योग से युक्त है, उदेति, in them, rises, they rise, ut eti, they उठ जाते हैं, they rise, they are
Tejas.
tejas, not just physical, but there is nobility that rises. There's a character refinement. That's the right word. There's a character refinement. Udeti. Atra kevalam aryata. Those are the ones who are Arya. And what happens? Yaha drishtva moodhaha. Yaha drishtva moodha buddhinam. Moodha buddhi bhi jiski hai. Means those who don't think clearly. They are dull in their thinking. Seeing those people also, yaha drishtva. Seeing those, even the ones who have Moodha buddhi, abhyudeti mumukshata. Udeti, abhyudeti. Even in them arises. Mumukshata means here, in particular, mumukshutva, but you can generalize it to say, even they get inspired towards the higher ideals and values. So, an Arya is one who is not living because others should follow them. Arya is one who is dedicatedly living what the Shastra says is to be done, what his buddhi has understood as his kartavya to be done. Him only dedicatedly living that inspires दिखता है लोगों को, लोग देख लेते हैं, people have बुद्धि, even a dull witted he says, जिसमें ज्यादा नहीं है, बुद्धू जो है, जो ज्यादा सोचते वोचते नहीं, उनको भी दिख जाता है, and then they are also inspired to follow it. Arjuna has been an Aryan so far. He's been taken as examples for others. He has been one who has shown exemplary conduct and character in most difficult situations in life, in his life, in their family life. He stood strong on his own kartavyata. Krishna says, now what you are showing, ये जो मल है ना, कशमल, this is like बुद्धि में जो तुम्हारे ये मल आ गया है ना, it's in the form of a mal, impurity, sanshaya, doubt. This thinking that you have shown, first chapter what he has shown, this thinking according to Krishna is kashmala. And that thinking does not befit you who's an Aryan. On the contrary, anarya justam. It is showing itself as, justam means serving, sevitam. As if it is following an anaryam, means वो अनार्यता को बढ़ा रहा है, सेवा अनार्यता की कर रहा है. So it is following अनार्यता, अनार्य जुष्टम, aswargyam. In the first chapter he said, what will we get out of this? No heaven. Even our ancestors are going to fall from heaven. They will also go to hell. Krishna says, this what you are showing, no, your state of mind, what you are now. This will not even get you Swargam. You're talking about them losing Swargam. What you are showing now is aswargyam. It is worthy of nothing. Not only in the future it will not get you something. Aswargyam means it is swarg ki baat hai baad mein. It will come later. But you thinking that by giving up the war we will go to Swarga because we will be doing punya. By fighting we will be doing papam and we'll be avoiding that hell by fighting the war. By avoiding the war we'll go to Swarga. He says, no, what you are saying now will not give you Swarga. Not only it will not give you Swarga, it is a sure measure, sure shot, road towards akirtikaram. It will bring you ill fame, dishonor. Now, immediately. It will bring you dishonor immediately. Why? In our Vedic tradition, in our Paramparic tradition, in our Sanskritam society, people considered fame as nothing. Fame was really a kirti if someone got. It was always as a byproduct. It has to follow you. In other words, there is knowledge there. Kirti will follow you if you are following Aryata. You don't have to go after Kirti. You don't have to advertise. You don't have to gather, etc., etc. You don't have to work for fame. You don't have to work to spread your name. You don't have to work to be popular. What is the way in which this comes? And this is a law. If you are following what is to be followed, as the verse also says, even the dull-witted get inspired by it. That means whoever does what is to be done is recognized in society already, and the recognition comes. Like, for example, um, if you speak the truth always. Karna. Why do we remember Karna, the great Dani.
Yeah. He was
Dan.
a giver.
He was a
Yeah.
giver. All of us remember him. When it comes between Arjuna and Karna, a lot of us, we have our favorite ones amongst all these. A lot of us say Karna is my favorite of all these Pandavas, but he's a Pandava at the end of the day. Karna is my favorite. Why? Because such a Dani. That means these values are already seen through. They bring you closer to yourself. And it is a see-through. If you see any small child helping someone, there's so many videos that float in the world like this nowadays, no? Helping, say, another child, or sharing their food with someone else, or smiling, or someone doing a good deed for someone, even if you're a bystander, suddenly you get a smile on your face. Suddenly you nod, you appreciate. You don't know that's a stranger there, but the action speaks. Even if you're not an animal lover, supposing, and you see an animal lover running to save a hurt, injured dog, does anybody say kitna buddhu hai? Even if you're not an animal lover, will you say to that person, he is such an idiot, this person is so stupid? Automatically in your heart, what comes? Automatically there is this snehata, automatically there is this spriha, automatically there is this warmth. You get a smile, you recognize that person is showing something which everyone should show. Should be lived with it by everyone. That recognition of eternal values is there in us. If someone is honest, if someone is truthful, you appreciate. Is this point getting across?
Deepti ji,
Sorry?
I am not convinced, like in today's world. I mean, like you said, na, that if you're doing something good, the other nobody will say कि ये बेवकूफ है. But it happens these days. They will say कि तुम बेवकूफ हो. For example, if somebody is going for a party, and if I tell them I don't want to come because I have a Bhagavad Gita class, a lot of them will actually say तुम बेवकूफ हो, तुम्हारे तो कोई दोस्त ही नहीं रह जाएंगे, तुम सो जाते हो रात को 9:30 बजे. So I mean, in today's society there are actually those, you can say maybe charvakas, who are
प्रियंका
just
वो सो रहे हैं, like दीप्ति जी explained to us in तत्वबोधा, वो सो रहे हैं और वो सोते रहेंगे जब तक उनकी नींद नहीं खुलेगी. तो इसलिए उनको देख के entertainment
No, I'm just saying
रखो.
that people exist, that okay, you can say वो सो रहे हैं, but I mean they exist today, that
Yeah.
they don't
No,
appreciate this.
They exist. Definitely they exist. The point is, if they are honest to themselves, why are they saying this to you? It's not a difficult answer to figure out. Why are they saying this to you?
वो
Because they
honestly
don't understand to do the same thing.
Period. They would also like to. They like your discipline. They like that you do this. But at the end of the day, what has overcome them? तुम्हारे फ्रेंड नहीं रह जाएंगे, तुम्हारी कोई सोशल लाइफ नहीं रहेगी, तुम्हारा सॉरी
insecurity for them, तुम क्या कर रहे हो?
धीरे धीरे क्या मतलब what will become of your today? You are recognized as a person if you're social.
Yeah.
But heart to heart, honest if they are. Why is it so spread today? Is because people are not honest. But if there is honesty, it pulls you. So who will get pulled by it? Who will acknowledge it as right? even in today's standard. So if supposing that animal lover is not an animal lover but sees it, and if smile comes, what defines of this person then? Who smiled? What speaks of that person? That person is in touch with some values, recognizes the good and the bad, recognizes the right and the wrong. Even if they don't have the initiative to go protect an animal, they will appreciate when someone else is putting that effort. So what does it speak? It doesn't mean that those people do not have it. They just have hidden it. Because if they bring it up, they won't know how to deal with it, because their whole life pattern has gone onto a direction of sense pleasures. So they don't know where the identity is. Like Arjuna doesn't know where his identity will be if these people go. So if you've lived your life on partying weekends and work hard weekdays and then party weekends until you are dead and drunk and drugged and whatever else you want to add, till you have made silly jokes and stupid things if this is your concept of happiness, and if sleeping at 9:30 or is supposed to be destroying your social life or whatever else it means, it's okay. But yeah, definitely the values recognition can never go. Honesty, yes. We may not be honest about it, because that itself needs development on your own part. That means I will have to make a lot of correction in my life to be able to follow that. Before I can even come to the point of saying, साढ़े नौ को सोना is not a bad idea. Even Bollywood actors go to sleep early and get up early.
That they like. Akshay Kumar's example everybody likes. But if we say we wake up at 4:30, we are stupid. Akshay Kumar.
Yeah. No, that's our struggle. That's our struggle, how we balance the opinions around us, the matam around us. How we balance those mat. And this is, you can go on, the first chapter can continue. How those mat affect us or influence us.
So that's why also Deepti ji, your sangat has to be right, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
That is also.
Absolutely. And that is also one of the things that gets to be sorted, kind of a thing slowly. It gets.
It's okay to just ignore such comments.
Why ignore also? They are fine in their place. Leave it. If they knew better, what would they say? If Dhritarashtra knew better, or if Duryodhan knew better, will there be a war? Will there be a conflict of interest?
No.
Ultimately, I always say one thing, and gaant bandhne wali baat hai. Whenever such situations come which tend to confuse us, go fast forward on your deathbed. Your deathbed. A minute before you die. What is going to be important then? If you have lived your life for that you should not have regrets about, that you should not have felt, that you will not feel that I wasted my life, etc. That you should not have, you be true to yourself. If you think that's right, then follow that. You don't have to get up at 4:30 also. You don't have to get up at 9:30 also. But you can't expect the others to have the same value as you would have. Your value would have grown because of your interest and your knowledge and your experiences, and it's your understanding. If they have the same understanding, they will be with you. Or if you have their understanding, you will be with them.
एक टाइम तो थे वहां पर, उसके बाद वहां से निकल आए.
क्यों निकले? See why? Because now where is Vedanta not fitting into all this? हम कब निकल के आ सके?
when we had the gyan.
When we could suspect that this is not the end of it, no?
They're not happy there, basically.
That is what Vedanta's entire Vedic knowledge is talking to us. Whoever will recognize, unme se bhi jab bhi, whenever. It may take them another 10 years, 15 years, 10 janmas.
जब तक उनके
All of us, every jiva comes at it at some point or the other. That you just say, this is not enough reason to spend my life with.
And
उसके
Deepti, this is sansar. Till the time you realize that this is not it, that is sansar, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Correct.
Deepti, was Bhishma Arya? Would you consider him as Arya?
Yes.
Bhishma?
Yes. He's an Arya Putra. Everyone, why Aryans were called Aryans is because we lived these. Whoever lived it, that whole community was an Aryan. So it's not a name. Whoever's living, doing what they should be doing, if a majority people live doing what they are supposed to be doing, that culture is an Aryan culture. It's not those Iranians who, etc., etc. Okay? So I'll just summarize this verse again. Bhagwan, what positive emotion Arjuna thought is positive. Kripa, kindness for his grandfather, especially for Bhishma and Drona. He's going to take their name in the next verse. Especially for them, what he feels he's got attachment, he feels he's got sneh for them, he feels he's got affection for them, etc. Whatever he feels he has for them, that's what he was justifying as a reason not to fight. And Krishna exactly that is saying, that's a heenata, you've fallen. That weakness has, your mind is weak now. The weakness has taken you over. You know, when as mothers you have a lot of some mothers have a tough time. I have a tough mother, so I know it. If your child does something wrong, especially when you're in a children age, first you try loving method, sam, adam, danda, bheda, what, you try affectionately, samjhane ka, ye wo. If you know the child is really going wrong, what do?
You put your foot down.
You put your foot down.
Thappad.
Even when you know that your child is going to curse you for the rest of their life, can misunderstand you, but you know that it's good for your child. That is called a strong mind. What is good, what is right, and the capacity to see through it, irrespective of the emotional fluctuations that can happen in between, and despite them. But what is Arjuna showing? Weakness of heart, weakness of the moment. It's a fall. Kashmalam idam. And why is it a mala? Why is it a dosha? Because in this situation that they are now presented with, the action just doesn't seem to be correlated. That's not what is expected out of you. So this is a learning to all of us. If only we know how our conduct should be in the situation that we are, wherever it is, that time and space is also an ingredient of your action. I would feel today is your first class of the Gita. You can already see the difference because this is the beginning. So that time and space becomes one of the factors of your quality of your action. If in this time and space what you ought to be doing, and you are not able to do it because of a weakness of your heart, because of some wrong thinking, that is what Gita is going to teach us to prevent that, so that you can be aligned to do what you ought to be doing. Recognize what is your situation, recognize what is your time and space asking you to do, what is the welfare, Shreyas kisme hai, and do what is to be done. And then the attitudes, further refinement of the attitudes. That comes later. But Abhi Arjuna still has more things to tell Krishna. Is this okay so far? Any question up to this point? Third verse, of course, is still left. He's going to still be. This Hridaya Daurbalyam, which I am touching today, is this next verse. This is his Durbalta of the Hridaya, of his heart. And Krishna is going to tell him in the third verse, Tyaktva, give it up. Chodo is Durbalta ko. Uttishta, utho. Come back to your stature. Come back to who you are. Come back to the person Arjuna who was just before this Sthiti had happened. Yaktva uttishta parantapa. This verse we will start tomorrow. Any question? Anybody?
Ji, earlier you mentioned about the person who is on a path of spiritual growth might be able to avoid the situation that Arjun has. I didn't understand that part.
When did I say this?
You were talking about we have a sudden dropping of reasons why we are doing something. When Arjun now dropped his reason that why he should be fighting. He's forgotten about that and he's become emotional and he doesn't want to fight. So at that time you said that if today one of us is already has the gyan and is on the path of spiritual growth, might be able to avoid that situation.
Yeah. How? Because firstly, at least up to third chapter also, when you come to, you will understand this a lot better. But firstly, they will recognize the slip of the mind happening automatically, because now you know. As I said, today also I said this. It can all work as a prevention. Everybody doesn't have to, because that's how knowledge is an immunity booster. It will give you the immunity against sudden shocks and vagaries of life, because it immunizes you from inside. You have the preparedness that is necessary to face sudden situations. That preparedness comes from knowledge. So you can avoid because you have knowledge. I'm generalizing it. The specifics will be when you come to third chapter. You will see how it will be. You will recognize the reason why you can avoid it. That reason will come in the third and the fourth chapters. Because it's all to do with action. So up here, the only thing that the first thing that will be there is absolutely. So the first thing to be recognized here in this context is the recognition that slip itself will happen. The minute I see my mind overwhelming, I know the chronology of fall. In the second chapter, is going to talk about the ladder of fall. मन गिरता कैसे है, तो ये विषाद में आया कैसे अर्जुन? That whole step by step will come.
So Krishna took the Rath between Bhishma and Dronacharya. So the reason was, I am confused between two reasons. One is that because he wanted to show Arjun that these two should be your main target because they are the strongest and you should get them first. Or is it because he knew that when he sees them, he will fall weak, so it's better to do it now rather than later in the middle of the war?
No, if you look at it, it's not wrong to look at it the first way also. that he would take. These are your two main targets, but that's like a warrior approach. Krishna, from another way of looking at it, or is Krishna being an avatara Purush? There are definitions of an avatara, and avatara is one of his jobs when he comes is also to reinstate the dharmas in minds. And so far in Krishna's life, this is 75 plus when this war was happening, probably, if I remember well. This I did very long ago, but they were approximately this age, 75 plus, when this war was happening. Abhi tak Krishna hasn't given the Gyan part of his. It hasn't yet come in his whole life. So this is the occasion by bringing it in front. Of course, this is said as an explanation. It doesn't go with the flow of the story, the narration. But through bringing it here, this is swabhavik for anyone to have felt. As I said in my explanation of this, that because it's a swabhavik, it is better to deal with it. That preparation they hadn't done. Pandavas had not prepared themselves for that. Emotional preparation was lacking. They had prepared the strength, physical strength, material strength, army, resources, all preparation was done. But the mental preparation of the outcome of the war was not done. So by bringing him in front, it was likely that it was going to erupt. And it is better that it erupts before, so that it's resolved, so that your action becomes purified when you set out to do such a apparently hideous action. The heinous action, apparently. If dharma you're not fighting for, and your buddhi is colored in that action, and you have personal mix-up there, very likely that you will land up on the adharma side. So there had to be an intellectual clarity, there had to be an intellectual conviction, there had to be the recognition of their reason. That's why today's class, the starting introduction, I said, if the motivation is lost, if the reason is lost, then your life direction is lost.
But Ditiji, they do go into Vishad again, right? After
That's
the
it.
war.
But not Arjuna.
Arjuna doesn't? Okay.
He gets into confusion later, much later, when I think I've forgotten now exactly, but there is a smaller, no, not smaller, that's a longer version. He asks Krishna after many years, where is Krishna going back? I think he's going one of the last times he's leaving them. And that time Arjuna tells him, on your battlefield you gave me such beautiful gyan. Can you please tell me again? That's like one. So that's like a Anu Gita. This is Bhagavad Gita. That's also part of Mahabharata. But there Krishna gives it in a very different way. It's not as, maybe because this is a situation is battlefield, so he has to be sharp and crisp. And in Anu Gita, it's like a more dhila dhala. But points, knowledge is the same. But who goes into Vishad again at that time is Yudhishthir. And that's where the Bhishma conversation, I think, happens or something. Okay. Is that clear, Priyanka? Better?
Yes.
Yes. Correct, Anand Kumarji. Right. So everyone, thank you so much. Anybody, you want to chant, Aditi?
Hari Om Ditji, I have a quick question.
Anji.
You had mentioned this when we first started. What is Vishesh Dharma? We were talking about Samanya Dharma and Vishesh Dharma.
Vishesh Dharma is specific to your, like today I said, time and space coordinates, specific to where you are, what you ought to be doing. So in those days, it was defined by your Varna and Kula. So if you are in a brahmachari avastha, grahastha avastha, and in society having vishesha dharma of the kula family obligation, they are unique to you. In today's world, since we don't fall back on those dharmas, the best parallel to that explanation is the roles of your life that you have gone into. They become unique to you then. So for example, if you are a parent, then your unique dharma is of a parent. If you are a doctor, your unique dharma is of a doctor. If you are a businessman, your unique dharma is of it. So you are a mother, you are a sister, you are a teacher, you are a student, you are so all those roles that we have taken on ourselves, which would be different for each one of us, in the situations where we are, dharma is specific to that.
Okay.
But traditional meaning is those specific dharmas. They were karmas. So those vishesha dharmas were vishesha karmas to be done. Family lineages had their own karmas, jati karma, kula karma, etc. So whatever can be carried forward, one ought to. Otherwise, at least, so Gita kind of frees us from a lot of those karmas that were there in the form of ritualistic karmas. But because those ritualistic karmas opened up the possibility of the maturity of the mind, Krishna over here brings it as Karam Yoga. Wherever you are stationed in life, whatever karma you are doing, if it is done with those two basic things that are ingredients of ritual, if you bring it in the specific karma now, it will still become Karam Yoga. So you get it will still be called a dharma.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Dipti ji, I came across this very interesting shloka from Subhashita Manjari. In fact, I wanted to ask a question on this, and I think it's going to probably tie in with the Vishesh and Samanya Dharma. It says, and I wanted to ask your opinion on this. Prathame narjita vidya, dvitiye narjitam dhanam, tritiye narjitam punyam, chaturthe kim karishyasi. Because I found it very, very, I personally would always have a little bit of a thing stopping me when I wanted to do something. And this sort of, told me that I can go ahead and do it because it is my place in life at this point in time to go ahead and do it, I guess. Is that what it
Can you
refers to?
repeat it for everyone else also? And
Yeah.
Prathame?
Prathame narjita vidya, dvitiye
Okay. Prathame na arjita vidya. Right?
Hanji.
So
Dvitiye
do not give up vidya. Prathame, first, do not give up vidya. Dvitiye,
narjitam dhanam.
second, do not give up wealth. Pursuit of wealth. First, keep the pursuit of vidya. Second, keep the pursuit of wealth. Then,
Tritiye narjitam punyam.
So,
Chaturthe kim karishyasi.
what else is left to do? What else will you do? So, Tritiye is punyam, means you use the wealth for the sake of punya. Tritiye, so you earn wealth for punyam. What else is there to do?
And also the meaning that came with it said that what can you do in the fourth part of life when you have not gained knowledge in the first, money in the second, and merit in the third?
Okay. So this is, yes. So now this is in accordance to the avastha. The four stages, brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasi. So this from that standpoint then will be correct. Kim karishyasi, as when you reach the last stage of your life, if you have not earned wealth, vidya first, in the first stage of life, wealth in the second stage of life, use that wealth or done upasanas and all that in the third stage of life, then what will you do in the fourth stage of life? That will be Bhaj Govindam verse will say, no, where it will say you will only where is that verse? बालस्तावत् क्रीडासक्तः तरुणीस्तावत् तरुणीसक्तः वृद्धस्तावत् चिन्तासक्तः परमे कोपिना ब्रह्मणि सक्तः. So in the first stage of your life, you spent the contrary to this would be this verse it's from Bhaja Govindam. First stage of your life, when you were supposed to get vidya, you spent it away playing. Balas tavat krida saktaha. You are attached to playfulness. So when as a brahmachari, your duty is very good actually. Your duty is to gain vidya. But if you spend it playing away, Balastavat Krida Saktaha, Tarunastavat Taruni Saktaha. So in your teenage life, youth, when you're supposed to be earning wealth, taking care of your family or duties and obligations, etc., because Grasta holds the other three ashramas. So you are supposed to contribute to all the three other ashramas, which is Vanaprasthi, Sannyasi, and Brahmachari. So if a Grahastha is frittering it away, instead of equipping themselves to becoming capable members of society who earn and are able to hold others, you fritter it away, taruni saktaha. You get correct. You get you lose away in attractiveness for the other genders and attractive things, and you spend away in pleasures. Balastava krida sakta, tarunastava taruni sakta, vriddhas. And when it comes to old age, vriddhaha tavat, when you come to old age, you will spend it that time away in chinta saktaha. So you have all kinds of worries when you come to old age. So when will you have, this is Shankara's verse, so Shankara is saying, when will there be time left for you to do thinking on Brahmani Kopina? Nobody thinks so. Nobody has time for Brahman, for reflection. Nobody has time for all this. But if you take the Subhashitam only as itself, the first priority should be in life, because now those stages have gone. So at every point, if there's a conflict, first priority should be Vidya. Second is, if you are engaged in society and are earning, have to be an earner, then make sure that a part of your earning has equivalent of good, what would be called as sanctioned karma for Shastra. So punyam, kind of, and then the last stage is reflection. Okay, we are 2 hours close to. We want to have a class tomorrow, no? We should end the class. Would you like to conclude, Aditi? Yeah. You're on mute.
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां स्थिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां लं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्.
Everyone would have ended this.
Gita ji, pranam, and thank you very much. Pranam.
You, Pranam.
Thank you so much, Deepti ji. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Hari Om, Nitya ji. Thank
Deepti.
you.
Thank you,
It will
Deepti ji.
go end.